Welcome, everyone, to the next program in the Berkeley Law Career Series. Today, we have something a little bit different. It's a path for lawyers, a path for non-lawyers. This is really a path for engineers and scientists and those with STEM backgrounds. And it's a path that I've seen all of my life and been exposed to. And it's a great career path in itself. It's a great way to test out the law if you're thinking about law school. There's just a lot to it for those with scientific backgrounds, from law firms to corporations. It's really interesting, but it's hard to find information out there about it because you'll find a few things on the web, but it's not really well described a lot. And the path to get there isn't always clear unless you come across a law firm, lawyers, a company that's actually hiring for this position. And when they're hiring for it, you already need to be ready for it. Most of the time, not all the time. But when you first hear about it and you think about applying for a job, sometimes you're just not quite ready for it. So the goal here today is to introduce you to, I think, one of the more advanced programs in the country on patent agents. And we'll talk about what's the path to being a patent agent, what's the difference between a patent agent and a patent lawyer, what kind of background do you need, what kind of legal education do you need, why would you do it? Just not clear when anybody goes to engineering school why you would end up as, well, it's probably not clear why you end up as a lawyer. And as a patent agent, probably not clear either. So we bring you two people that are two experts from Wilson Sonsini that are known for building this kind of program. And I'll add some pieces in on my side from the high-tech piece of the world where I've hired patent agents through most of my career. So with us, we have Deborah Smith and Adam Cole, both PhDs in life sciences, and I think that's going to be one of the questions that come up. Is this a PhD only career? Is it a JD lawyer career? How do we do it? But I think the first place to start is to ask the two of you, what is a patent agent versus a patent lawyer?
Yep, I mean, I can start with that. So in the world of IP, sometimes you'll also run across, just to throw another term out there, sometimes you'll run across IP specialist or a scientific advisor. And that might be somebody who's working, for example, for a law firm in their patent practice, and they have a PhD or a master's degree or some level of expertise, even working expertise in a technical area. And the law firm is leveraging their technical expertise to help them understand the client's technology, to help be able to understand the issues and help them with their intellectual property needs. So for that, you really just need a PhD. The next step would be a patent agent. And that's somebody, again, who typically has, doesn't have to be a PhD, but again, has some type of technical expertise. So whether it's an engineering background or organic chemistry background or biology background. So somebody who has that, similar to the scientific advisor or the IP specialist, but also is registered to practice patent matters before the USPTO. And that essentially means that you've taken and passed the USPTO's patent bar exam, along with their other formalities. And then I don't know if you asked the question about the difference between a patent attorney, but the next step to the patent attorney would be sort of all those things that were encompassed in the scientific advisor background, the patent agent background, but adds on top that you've taken and passed the state bar examination. For example, the California bar exam if you're practicing in California.
Yeah, I think what I would add here is that to take the patent bar, you actually do have to have a technical background. The USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, they won't even allow you to take the test unless you meet their technical requirements. So as far as the patent bar is concerned, you don't actually need any IP experience to take it. The only prerequisite is a technical degree. And once you have that technical degree, you can then register, pay the fees, and then take the exam. Certainly, if you've had some experience beforehand, that can help you out, but you do not actually have to have had any experience to take the patent bar exam beyond just a technical degree.
And I'd love to add that the technical degree, I mean, in federal government style, there's a long list of what they consider and don't consider a technical degree, but at its highest level, a STEM degree at an undergraduate level qualifies as a technical degree. Well, I take that back. The M in STEM gets you tossed out. It's just the STE, the science, technology, engineering. So if you've got electrical engineering, biology, chemistry, kind of the hard sciences, where most of your inventive activities are taking place, that it qualifies you to sit for the exam. May not qualify you to be hired by law firms or companies, but you can at least sit for the exam. There are some nuances around things like computer science that you just have to deal with the government regulations. But it's like you said, it's an exam you have to take, and the exam is related to USPTO government procedures for drafting and filing patents.
Yeah, the patent bar really takes all of its content from something called the Manual of Patent Examination Procedure. We call it the MPEP for short. And really all of the questions, the answers are going to be found in the MPEP. One thing that is different about the patent bar exam compared to, say, the state bar examination for all lawyers is that you actually are able to use the MPEP on the test. So part of the job in studying for the MPEP, or studying for the patent bar, excuse me, is to learn where things in the MPEP are. And so, you can refer to it though on the exam. It's not something that you have to memorize. It when you see the MPEP, I'm actually not sure if they make hard copies of it anymore. We used to get them in our office, and now I think we just pretty much rely online. But if you were to see a hard copy set, it's giant manuals. There are thousands and thousands of pages. So having the ability to search through it on the test, I think lowers the burden a bit on what you have to memorize.
So for many years, I mean, my background, of course, I'd been as a patent litigator, but I'm licensed in front of the USPTO, and the MPEP was my favorite monitor stand. I needed about a 5-inch a 5-inch boost on my monitor, and it was perfect.
Maybe you are not the first attorney that I've heard actually say that. There were definitely offices I would walk through in our Palo Alto office when I first started, and I would see the same thing.
It's a perfect, but if you ever need it, then it's easier to look online than actually pull it out from under your monitor.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we know that if you've got an engineering degree or a science degree, you can take an exam and you become a patent agent. So maybe the next question is why? Why would I do that? I've got an engineering degree or a science degree. Maybe I've got a PhD in the hard sciences. Why would I do it? What's the career path?
Adam, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. Just want to make sure we're not being too awkward here. So why would you want to do it? I guess maybe what I can do is tell you why sort of my trajectory and sort of how I landed on the role. Like Deborah, I did a PhD in pharmaceuticals, all about drug delivery. And I started after my PhD a postdoc at a university that shall not be named. Did that for a year and started to realize that I started to realize that the academic track really wasn't for me, and I didn't think I had the stamina to stay in the long haul for an academic position. And so after some peer counseling and a little bit of self-reflection, I started to think about what are ways to stay in science but not have to actually do the science. And so I had a friend actually who worked for another law firm and from grad school and who wound up doing this. And he introduced me to the career path, and I was like, wow, this sounds pretty cool. I talked to him. He was able to. He told me that he stays on top of all of the current things that he was working on with his law firm. Definitely got to get into the technical weeds and learn about all the interesting things that are going on. But at the same time, have things that he could tell his client, that he was working for, like, yes, we did this, this is things that can actually help you. For those of us who've come from academic career paths, academia can be, somewhat hard to stay with from a patient standpoint, because things can work, things might not work, and things can take a really long time. And I think, I was also looking for something that, had much faster results and things that you could say that, you did and accomplished, and so on and so forth. And so, when I heard about this career path, I was like, great, and not to mention there's a business component to it too. I always had an interest in that as well. Here at Wilson, we certainly design patent strategies, but we design them with a business purpose involved. We work a lot with early stage companies, what we call them the growth enterprise. And, these patents that we get, these IP portfolios that we build, are their currency that they can use to then go and get funding or get acquired or go public, or, whatever the end goal is. And, all that sounded really cool to me, all while I didn't have to, do animal experiments myself anymore, or the like.
Yeah, and I think just echoing what Adam just said, people can have different reasons, but at the core, usually, if you're ready for a change or just explore what a change might look like, it's a chance to still use your like what if you do have a PhD or a technical degree, it's still a chance to use that. Perhaps you're not interested working in a lab or in academia or in industry, this is an option definitely to look at. I think, as Adam said, it's not just being able to be at the cutting edge of science, which is where we're at in IP law, but also the legal aspects of it too. And then also there's that business component. And so, a lot of times we take our job is to find a pragmatic approach to solving the problems, taking into account all three of those issues. And if you're interested in this career, even if you're not, I would say if you run across patent agents or patent attorneys, just ask them about why they got into this, because I think everybody has sort of an interesting story. And also, if you're timid about making the change too, I think take comfort in that we've all been there too. We were all scientists, right, at the bench working, and decided to take a leap of faith, right? So I think even when I have a PhD, I did a postdoc, I worked in industry for a few years as a chemist, medicinal chemist, with big pharma. And, even when I decided to try this, I think there's not a good understanding of what the job is until you're doing it, right? And even when I interviewed, I remember somebody asked me, what makes you think you're going to be any good at this? So I don't know, right? I gotta give this, I gotta try it out, right? And I think if you are somebody who likes to take complex information and sort of distill it down to the main points, and if you like to give presentations, right? And if you like to take your data, and sort of distill it down to the main point, if you enjoy writing and being analytical, you're curious, I think those are all really great qualities, for people who are interested in being a patent agent.
Yeah, and I would say too that if you like to project manage, certainly as you rise up the ranks, even as a patent agent, you're going to get more responsibility to manage sort of the junior ranks and manage projects. And Deborah and I can both say that we have lots of projects going on all at once. It's not like it was, in graduate school, for example, where you may work on one project your entire time you're at grad school, and that's it. In any given day, I'm switching between, technologies that are very different from each other, 4 or 5 times over. And that's just in one day, the week, different story. And so project management is definitely a really good aspect of this job as well, if you like that kind of thing. I'd also mention, and to Deborah's point about having been a member of industry for a little while, it also offers an entry point for folks who either are coming straight from academia like I did, where this was really my first, real job, versus, we've had folks in our group. I remember we had one guy who'd had, actually 2 guys I can think of, who had careers already, and they were sort of, sunsetting their career and wanted to try this out, and they did, and they were successful. And so you don't have to be, a brand new, a fresh student. You can be someone who's worked in industry a few years like Deborah did, or, we've even hired folks who've been in industry for quite a long time before they went into IP.
Well, and I'm going to add one slight different variation, because both of you spent a long time in school, especially for an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
That's a long time for the PhD and then extra work after the PhD. But when you go to like electrical engineering, telecommunications engineering, computer engineering, the PhDs and for patent agents are probably more uncommon than they are common.
Definitely.
And when I lived in Colorado, I was an adjunct professor there, and Hewlett Packard sent a lot of their engineers to law school. They first they were patent agents, and then they had to spend a year or 2 years being patent agents, and then they sent them to law school to become patent lawyers afterwards. And those folks are there in different iterations of HP and spin outs, but they're still running big programs. And I always thought that was interesting that the company itself was encouraging its good engineers to go do that. People that wanted a career change, that maybe had gotten tired of some of those issues, or for one individual, their project had been sold off,
Yep.
their piece of it, and they wanted to keep the person. And so they said, hey, we've got a different path for you. Would you be interested? Went on to be a lawyer and went to law school. So there are different ways to do this outside of law firms. A lot of companies value these positions as really important to their innovation ecosystem.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Wayne. I think that actually is a perfect segue, into what can be the benefits of starting as a patent agent, particularly if you're interested in maybe eventually becoming a lawyer. So both Deborah and I started as brand new green patent agents. I'd never done work in the field at all, really. Worked a few years as patent agents, and Wilson Sonsini certainly is a leader, I think, in this area. Sent us both to law school while we were able to continue to have our patent agent jobs on a some, for me, part-time basis. Deborah on a reduced hours basis, because she did a full-time a part-time law school program where I did my full-time at Berkeley. But there are ways for folks to help to get law school paid for and to get support while they're in law school, as part of growing from that patent agent role to a attorney. Now, Deborah can sort of highlight what we call our PALS program, which is our version of it, and we spent a lot of time optimizing it and getting it up off the ground to a place where I have not heard of a better program, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. And our PALS program, as you mentioned, it's Patent Agents in Law School program. And as Adam mentioned, he and I both sort of went through that program. And it's where, Adam, I think you probably described it already, but it's where Wilson Sonsini will support your education while you're working as a patent agent for law firm. And the program is, as Adam mentioned, always being optimized. So it is sort of constantly changing. And that's why I would also, if you are interested, I would reach out and get more information, because Wade, I think you kind of touched on it too, sort of the requirements, whether a master's degree, a PhD, or a bachelor's degree, it can help get your foot in the door. All of that is also changes with the market as well. So somebody may have said something 2 years ago, which might be different 2 years from now, right? So I think if you are interested, I would definitely seek out more information, and including with our PALS program too. That's something I would just reach out from our recruiting department and to get more information. But basically, they help pay for your law school tuition, while also you have the ability to ability to also work and get paid for your work as well, which I would say helps you get real world experience in patent law, but also helps you, which I don't know that you really appreciate it until afterwards, but it helps you build the relationships with your clients. Really helps you grow with the client, because as a patent agent, you are sort of neck deep in their technology and you kind of know everything about their company, right? So that as you're in their technology, so as you grow with them, you just sort of have that deep understanding and appreciation for their technology and where they've gone. And then also the relationships with people within the law firm as well. So I think it just makes for a really great experience while you're in law school, and then also transitioning as well.
And I would say too, it being able to kind of hit the ground running when you start as an attorney, when you're done with law school, can make a world of difference in terms of where you're at and probably your job satisfaction too. You know, when both of us started as attorneys, you know, we didn't have to learn the very basics of patent law. Now, that's not to say that that both of us, you know, don't learn something new all the time. You know, the law is constantly evolving. You know, we have very good competency, but you know, we don't know everything in the world there is to know. And you know, you have to kind of go into this career path, I think, being willing to know that you're always going to be learning something new, whether it's technical, whether it's the law, whether it's both, whether it's how to deal with people, whatever it is. But you know, being able to really do the work from the moment you become an attorney makes a big difference, because you're really starting to manage projects and manage teams. And you know, I think one thing that we probably should cover too is, you know, what do patent agents typically do, you know, versus the lawyer. And so in our group, generally the way that it works is our patent agents really do a lot of the heavy lifting for our clients. So they will write patent applications. We work with companies to help de-risk third-party IP. They will do a lot of the searching, the analysis of, you know, many patent hits as part of that. They will drive the day-to-day work with the client. And so, you know, we make an effort to put our patent agents, you know, right front and center with the client. I remember when I first started with Wilson, I was in a client meeting the third day I worked here. A bit intimidating, I'll be honest, because I had no idea what I was doing. Fortunately, the team I was working with had told me, you know, just sit there and take notes, which was good. But yeah, they help do the heavy lifting and, you know, are really integral to getting the job done. Whereas our attorneys, certainly after they've had some experience, and that would include the folks that go through our PALS program, they're going to be more of the strategic decision makers, helping guide these projects, manage the patent agent core to help get things along, communicate with the client about strategic issues, you know, keep the partner involved in the project, you know, loop them in as they need to, bring them in as they need to, and really be the quarterback for the client's work.
Well, I want to catch something here so no one gets off track. There's a common theme between the three of us. I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer, you're a lawyer. Is that the only, you know, I've got my patent agent license, I've taken my exam. Is that the only path for me? I've got to become a lawyer?
Absolutely not. We have plenty of career patent agents. And I would also say, even as long as I've been doing this too, it's a very attractive career. So if you're not sure you want to go to law school, I wouldn't let that stop you from learning more about this career. There's definitely a need for patent agents, and I would say even the market to go in-house with companies also. They also hire a lot of patent agents as well. So we do have a lot of senior patent agents that are now titled as patent counselors. So again, it's a role that you can grow with. As Adam said, you could be managing clients, working directly with partners and the clients themselves. It's definitely a great career.
Well, I would say even at least in the tech world, I see patent agents running prosecution departments in major corporations. They're the ones overseeing really overseeing all the law firms and how the work is being handed out and being done and quality control. It's a very, I mean, in itself, like I love that it's a career in itself. So you're never waiting to become a lawyer. It is a path. I like the way you put that.
Yeah, and I would say, I would say too, with the type of companies, vast majority again is that we work with are early stage companies. And for an early stage company, they can benefit by hiring maybe a patent agent to do exactly what you just said, Wayne. Run the patent prosecution program for the company, deal with the folks like me and Deborah on a daily basis. And because the patent agent role doesn't command the salary that say a senior attorney would, it can be a bit of a cost savings for a company too.
Well, and it's a tailor-made set of skills for a patent prosecution group. And what you were saying, I think, is important. If you're the in-house patent agent, you're the one steeped in their technology. Really, you're the one making sure the outside lawyers understand the technology. It's a really critical place to be at that junction between the scientists and the lawyers on the outside.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I know I made the comment about cost savings, but do keep in mind that even if you don't go the attorney route, you can do pretty well being a patent agent. It's definitely not a career path where you'll be longing for a whole lot, I think, in terms of financial resources.
Oh, the patent agent side is very lucrative in the long run. The lawyer with the same amount of experience often has taken a litigation path or a transactional path and is doing other things along the way. And sometimes, maybe not doing all of them as well as a specialist as a patent agent that's been around for a long time. But like I said, at HP, they were running, this was a while ago. Turns out that I'm getting older and I've been teaching for a while. I think I counted up, I'm in my 20th year of teaching. But they had agents driving their programs and then sent some of them to law school to do other things when they wanted their next career change. So kind of there's another path beyond for those folks. It wasn't a stepping stone. It was a second career change at 7-8 years later.
Yeah.
So, well, a question for you is if we look at this, because a lot of people are thinking maybe it's a tester for law school, see if I like the law. I could kind of minimal investment to take this career path rather than the 3 years of law school, which turns out doesn't come cheap these days. So what is the trend? I guess when you do that, I go test it at a law firm or a corporation. What is the transition then if I do decide to go to law school and I come back? Poof, am I somehow different now that somebody's given me a law license and I'm a patent agent at the same time? The tone of my voice tells you what my thoughts on the answer are, that the law degree qualifies you for nothing. But I'll let the two of you answer.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking about the patent agent career too, in the back of my mind, I was thinking that, we've certainly have worked with and continue to work with a lot of highly sophisticated patent agents still at Wilson Sonsini, but also people who have gone in-house. And I would say that a lot of them really love their jobs. They love the work that they're able to do, but they also love, I don't like this term, but the work-life balance that it allows them to get at the work-life, I forget, there's like a new term for it, but basically they're, and I don't know if it's apparent or not, or if it's real, but sort of less pressure. So once you get that JD, at least I would say like the initial transition is that you want to work, right? And that you're going to be sort of the person who is taking charge of things too. So making sure that things can get done. And, you know, as for the transition, right, I would say a lot of times patent agents who have worked for a while and then become an attorney, they also get either a compensation credit and or sometimes like a review year credit as well. But they basically you're seen as like a second year attorney or potentially a third year attorney, right? So I think that it's not just a straight transition to a fall associate. So you kind of have taken the leap and you are going to be running projects. You're going to be running IP diligence, working on transactions, working more on the legal documents. For example, contract work, working with probably your technology transactions department, but the IP provisions, right? You'll start to see a little bit more of the legal document side, maybe opinions, things like that.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Adam.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Wayne. What I'll do is take probably the front side of that question, which is, I'm somebody looking to go into this career path, I'm not sure about law school. Is this really low risk? And I would say it is pretty low risk. I mean, most of the folks that we've hired over the years, I think, have come from either other career paths or have come straight from academia. That's not everybody, but certainly a higher number. And I certainly am glad I did this, and I would certainly recommend this for anybody considering this career path and going to law school. Is definitely spend some time in the job beforehand. It's important that you understand what you're getting yourself into. I think, if I think back to postdoc Adam was, itching to get out of there and really needed another job and, certainly settled on this career path, but, had sort of this, itch that I needed to do something else, right? And you want to make sure before you commit to going to law school, both from a time and money standpoint, that you're kind of all in. For me, my life got more, complicated. I wasn't just 22 anymore and making decisions all on my own. I had a wife. We'd moved out here from Michigan, where I'm originally from, and it was a bit of a lot more different consideration than it was earlier in my life, where I probably could have just done whatever, and only person affected would be me. And so life happens, and you want to make sure that it's something that's going to be the right decision for you, and if you have a family, your family too. So I, probably recommend at least probably 2 years or maybe even more on that. I did 4 years as a patent agent, just so that you really understand what you're getting yourself into. And if you do that, and I remember there was a guy we had, he came to us all dead set, going to go to law school, and he did the job for about a year and a half and decided he hated it. And now he does competitive intelligence for a large pharmaceutical company. And I think he's a lot happier doing that than had he been a patent attorney. So it's definitely something that you can take advantage of. And I know that, as a firm, we don't look down on folks who decide that it's not for them, and certainly try to find ways to support them as they, move on to their next decision. So for their next career.
Yeah, that's right. But as you mentioned, it's not just law school or bust, right? There, we definitely know people who've gone to work for venture firms. Like again, like business side, you could go on there, you could go in-house with clients. So there's a lot of different options here. But I think, like you said, patent agent is low risk way to sort of look at these other options that are out there.
Well, and I love the way you describe it. These are patent agent, patent lawyer. They sound a lot alike, but they're actually different career paths. I mean, I'm a patent lawyer, but I haven't prosecuted a patent in 20 years. I do before I retired, all patent litigation. So the word lawyer is really ambiguous. You don't know what a patent lawyer really does. They could be prosecuting patents. They could be doing tech transactions. They could be doing patent litigation. but patent lawyer is a different career path than being a patent agent. It, you know, it's not a necessary progression, is what I hear you saying, and both of them are an end to themselves, and would be great careers either place.
Yeah, it can be. I think traditionally and typically patent agents are in the prosecution role. And for those of you who are unclear what prosecution means versus litigation, prosecution is all about getting the patents, writing patent applications, submitting them to patent offices, arguing back and forth with the patent office as to, why you deserve a patent, and then ultimately getting the patents. Litigation is more about challenging patents or asserting patents once they already exist. And so, I've been seeing postings now, I think, on increasing frequency where even litigation groups are now starting to hire technical folks to be, sort of like technical advisors or semi-patent agents within a litigation setting. There are certainly patent office type litigation that you can have with the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, PTAB, where we've had folks, work primarily on that stuff, and I've seen postings for that too. And I know Berkeley has a portion of that now. But yeah, it's an expanding market, it seems, in terms of exactly the kind of work that you can do as well.
That's a great point, Adam. And in my world, in the high tech world, you started seeing patent agents be pulled in for litigation to help with these challenges in front of the patent office, with the technology, with searching, and they sat right in the core litigation team as members of those teams. Because it turns out a 20-year-old electrical engineering degree may be a little dated. Don't know how that happened, but my math's still good. But apparently my engineering degree has changed a little bit. So new technology, or people that have been in the middle of this technology writing patents, that know the current state of the world, are really, really valuable as a team member.
Yeah, and whether you do whether you are traditional, I would say our patent agents are more in the sort of traditional camp, that I'd say the majority of what they're doing is prosecuting patents, arguing with the patent office. But that's not to say that, I haven't had experiences at Wilson, in my patent agent days, helping out with litigation. One of your clients gets sued for patent infringement, or your client wants to sue somebody for patent infringement. You can help, do some of the behind the scenes work, educating the litigation team, helping prepare materials for the litigation team to review, and so on and so forth. And so even if you're not hired to be sort of a litigation type of patent professional, the traditional route can still give you some exposure to both sides of things, even if if the majority of your work is just prosecution.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining, and I want to just ask you to give a couple of questions, kind of leave people with a couple questions they should be asking if they're thinking about making a career change from scientist, from engineer, to being a patent agent. How can they start thinking about this? Where do they go for information?
Deborah, you want to take the first stab?
Sorry, you go ahead.
Okay. First question I would ask is, do I really want to make a career change? If you're not sure, that can be something I think you need to work out before you take a leap to something else, whether it's this career path or something else. Where to get in for, I would investigate sort of what you believe you're getting yourself into. That could be doing some basic, Google searching, take a look at what other people have done. I'd also encourage folks to reach out to people in the field who do the work. As a patent agent, as an associate, and I know partners at our firm as well, we'll get emails from folks asking if they'll talk to them and, help them navigate their career. Being able to do that certainly gives you information about the career path, but also, helps you maybe make some connections. And I think when you're, ready to take the leap, well, who do you go out, who do you actually talk to? My experience was I didn't actually apply to a job posting. I contacted Vern Norval, who used to be the managing partner of our patent group and is a legend in the biotech field. And God, I can't get him to respond to me in 10 minutes now, but he responded to me in 10 minutes and said, why don't you come on in and let's have a chat? And, it was a cold email and I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, but it did. And so reaching out to the folks, particularly at the higher levels that are in the decision-making roles, so those would be partners, senior associate, just trying to get to know them. And then certainly being on the lookout for postings, things like that can be good too. But the more I think you can try to get to know people in the area, I think you're going to have a better chance at getting in and in a place that you want to go. And I made a comment too that you want to be happy with what your choice is, and you want to be with the right people, and that's what I'm really happy about here at Wilson is I don't look back and say, man, I wish I'd be working with a different group. So a little bit of a long-winded, but
Well, Deborah, how would you guide people?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too maybe is, when you think about academia, maybe even industry, there's sort of this deep dive into a certain area, right? So does that interest you? Or are you interested in having a little bit more broader exposure to different technologies and different problems, right? So I think that's something that is a little bit different about what we do as patent agents. I think, of course, someday if you decide to go in-house, you can have a little bit more of that deep knowledge of a particular area. But certainly, I think even most companies want you to start out in a law firm so that you can kind of get that broad range of exposure and experience. So it's just sort of asking yourself that if you are interested in having that. Again, I go back to that curiosity, right? The scientific curiosity and just understanding things more deeply, but also at a broader level as well. And then something else that I think is important to ask yourself is if you're ready to start over again. So that seems like a strange question, but as Adam said, a lot of people who have done this role, we come from all stages of life, which is why I say if you find a patent attorney, ask them about their story because it's always interesting. But a lot of people have been CSOs or CEOs, and they're kind of making an adjustment here. And I would say the biggest thing, not aside from curiosity, is when you're starting down this path, is to have an open mind, be easy on yourself, but also understand that you are, in some respects, starting over again, right? So like when Adam and I came in here, we kind of came in with like, I don't know anything, what's the docket, what's right, like you kind of have to get comfortable with not being that expert anymore, right? And I think when you come in with that open mind, you're sort of just a sponge, right? And you're kind of just, it becomes more fun because you're not judging yourself and you're just learning. And again, like you will be totally supported because we've all started from the same place. But I think that is something to ask yourself if you're sort of ready to sort of start over again and build up your career along this pathway. And again, there's a lot of different ways it could go, and it's up to you to figure out how it's going to go. And then, as Adam mentioned, reach out to attorneys, go on different websites and look at people's backgrounds, see who resonates with you, and just reach out and ask questions. We're all always happy to discuss with anybody, and we get those emails all the time. So
yeah, and if you're in a university setting, for those folks watching this who are, have a lookout for folks who are going to talk. I know, for example, at the Berkeley Law School, you folks invite people like me and Deborah all the time to talk on different topics, and be on the lookout. Usually those types of talks are open to pretty much anybody who wants to come in and just have a listen. And I think to Deborah's point about not being afraid, being willing to start over. I think equally important is you have to be willing to not be afraid to step up to the plate, because you will definitely have days in the beginning where you're kind of like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But, being able to stick with it, take constructive criticism, and continue to, roll with your learning curve, makes a huge difference in being successful. And, we do a pretty good job, I think, of teaming our folks up with mentors so that, that sort of, you have some confidence and you feel like you have someone, at least a person or two to rely on, in being able to step up to the plate without, being too afraid.
Perfect. This is good guidance for people, whether they are looking at a patent agent path or the patent agent to patent lawyer path. They're similar but different. So this should help people get started. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you both for your time.
Yeah, our pleasure, Wayne. And I assume I can speak for Deborah, but if anybody has questions, certainly you can find us on the Wilson Sonsini website, and I'm more than happy to talk to folks that are interested or have more questions.
Even though you didn't volunteer, I was still going to post your contact information so people could get to you. So no, we'll encourage people to follow up and pick a path that works. It's a good path, and people don't often know about it.
Yep, we don't look back thinking we made mistakes with our lives. We've been very satisfied.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.